Hello and welcome to Cold Wars Part 6. In this video we're starting off with the end of Détente and the beginning of the Second Cold War. Now the Cuban Missile Crisis was made worse by the inability of Kennedy and Khrushchev to communicate with each other directly on several occasions. Afterward, the Moscow-Washington hotline was put into place. This was a direct link between the Pentagon and the Kremlin and was commonly called the Red Telephone, although no actual telephone was used. By the end of the 1960s, the superpowers made further efforts toward détente to ease tensions and work to coexist and prevent all-out war. In 1972, SALT I, meaning the first strategic arms limitation talks signed by Nixon and Brezhnev, froze the number of strategic ballistic missile launchers. This was done to bring a halt to the arms race, and it also improved relations between the US and USSR. In 1973, the Vietnam conflict ended with a US ceasefire and withdrawal of American troops. 2 years later, it fell to the Communists in North Vietnam. But in 1975, representatives of 35 nations, including the US and Soviet Union, met in Helsinki, Finland, to discuss security and cooperation in Europe. What emerged were the Helsinki Accords. The document, signed by US President Gerald Ford and others, improved economic and technological cooperation between the East and the West, and they proposed the use of peaceful means, not force, to settle disputes. But perhaps the most long-standing impact of the Accords was the respect for basic human rights and freedoms, such as self-determination. However, the USSR and other communist states showed little interest in complying with these human rights agreements. Nonetheless, the Helsinki Accords were an important foundation for the democratic movements in Eastern Europe in the late 1980s. However, all good things must come to an end, and détente was no different. In 1978, a communist regime backed by the Soviet Union launched a coup in Afghanistan, taking control of the government. The US began to covertly fund and train anti-government forces called mujahideen, meaning struggler. The name derived from discontented Muslims in the country who were opposed in large part to the atheism of the communists. And in 1979, the Soviet-Afghan War began when the Soviet Union invaded to bolster the communist forces. What ensued would become a decade-long struggle in which more than 5 million Afghans fled their country, becoming refugees. This event effectively brought an end to détente, since the Soviet invasion potentially threatened the security of the oil-rich and economically vital Persian Gulf region. In turn, the US supplied the Mujahideen with funds and weapons, one of the most effective being portable guided surface-to-air Stinger missiles. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan essentially kicked off the Second Cold War. In the 1980 State of the Union address, President Jimmy Carter declared that the US would regard any attempt by outside forces to gain control of the Persian Gulf region as an assault on the vital interests of the United States, and potentially could be answered by military force. This was the Carter Doctrine. On a lighter note, in February, one of America's greatest Olympic events occurred with a miracle on ice, when the US ice hockey team, mostly made up of collegiate players, defeated the heavily favored Soviet Union team, and later beat Finland for the gold medal.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Months later, the US led an international boycott of the 1980 Summer Olympic Games in Moscow, mostly due to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. The US also restricted trade with the Soviet Union and delayed ratification of SALT II, the second round of the strategic arms limitation talks. In 1979, Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister of the UK and would retain that position until 1990. She was a staunch conservative, as well as US President Ronald Reagan, who took office in 1981. He denounced the actions of the Soviet Union and substantially increased defense spending, in part seeking to bankrupt the Soviet Union. The US also aided anti-communist efforts worldwide. In 1983, Reagan portrayed the struggle between the US and USSR as a fight between good and evil in what was known as his Evil Empire speech. Also, in 1983, the world came to the brink of nuclear war as a result of Able Archer 83, which was a NATO exercise between Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom, shown here as the GI-UK gap. The most powerful naval armada in history was assembled by NATO, involving around 40 ships and 300 aircraft. It reminded the Soviets of the buildup of German troops in 1941 during World War II, just before they commenced the surprise invasion of the USSR during Operation Barbarossa. Able Archer 83 was so realistic the Soviet Union readied their nuclear attack plans and put many military units on full alert. The threat of nuclear war ended with the conclusion of the 5-day exercise. Further escalating tension between the superpowers in 1984, the SDI project was initiated. SDI stood for Strategic Defense Initiative, which aimed to develop land and space-based technologies that could shoot down nuclear missiles before detonation. It was often called Star Wars after the famous films. It concerned the Soviet Union that their massive stockpile of nuclear weapons could be rendered useless.
Any attack made by the rebels against this station would be a useless gesture, no matter what technical data they've obtained. This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
That is fantastic. Terrific work. So no weaknesses at all, huh?
No.
You hesitated there. Is there something I should know?
No, it's virtually indestructible, like 99.99%.
Okay. Wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask what's the .01.
Well, I mean, there's this little hole. It was kind of an aesthetic choice by the architect, and if you shoot a laser into this hole, the station blows up.
Whoa. That sounds like a pretty big design flaw there.
No. The hole's only 2 meters across.
Well, that's no bigger than a womp rat.
Exactly. And even to get within range of it, you have to skim along this whole trench. It's not a big deal.
Well, I mean, can't we board it up or, put some plywood over it or something?
Well, that would look terrible. I mean, we got to think about resale.
Resale? What are you talking about? This property is right above Sunset. The value's only going to go up. I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Enough of this. Vader, release him.
As you wish. All right, so we're going to plug up that hole?
Yeah, we can get it done tomorrow if price is no object. We'll get estimates.
Get estimates, yeah.